Before we get any further into July, I want to pause and do a quick little rewind and do my June wrap up and let you know all the books that I read in June. There were a couple of weeks where I wasn't vlogging, so there might be some surprises here, but I'm really excited to share all the books that I went through in June. I managed to get through 18 books in total. One of these was a DNF, so I completed 17 books, and honestly, this is pretty good. This is probably one of my best months so far this year. I just feel like I was on a roll. Like, I just kept going, and I even read some books that were a little chunkier than usual, so I'm extra proud that I managed to make it through as many books as I did. Just to go through a couple of stats, I created a little like statistic sheet for myself because I really like tracking some of this stuff, and especially in June, this is the first time I've done this format, but just getting to look back at everything that I accomplished during the month feels really, really good. So first off, I mentioned I completed 17 books with 1 DNF. I read 13 of the books on audio, 12 of the books on physical, and 6 of them on ebook. And let me also just say that a lot of these books I had either physical or ebook with the audio. So those numbers are not going to add up to 18, but that's because I doubled up on a lot of them. And then I also kind of went through and counted how many books I had on each star rating based on the Goodreads rating because it's a full star. So I actually had 0 1-star books, which is quite an accomplishment, although I did have one that was a DNF. So that's kind of as close to 1 star as it could be. I had 1 book that I gave 2 stars, 3 books that I gave 3 stars, 11 books that I gave 4 stars, and 2 books that earned a 5-star rating for this month. So without any further ado, let's jump into what these books are going to look like. And I am going to go generally in order of the basic star rating. So we're going to start by going over the one that I DNF'd, and this was Summer at Mount Hope by Ophelia London. It just wasn't working for me. I didn't care about the characters. This is a romance, but like I wasn't rooting for the romance. The characters irritated me, and I was truly only in it for the setting, and that wasn't really enough to keep me going. So I ended up DNFing this around like 30%. I do feel like there is a pretty good audience for people who would like this. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me, sorry. But we are going to move on now to the 2-star rating that I had given, and this one went to That Night in the Library by Eva Jersic. This was a NetGalley arc that I was reading. I was really excited for this. It was a relatively short one. It was like under 300 pages, but I didn't care about anything that was happening. Honestly, I feel like nothing was happening. There was a bunch of people that get trapped in a basement when they're trying to do some like ritual, and then one by one people start to die, and they have to figure out who's doing it, what's going on. And I'm gonna be honest, like it felt like there was nothing exciting happening, nothing holding my attention. I wasn't super invested. I was just kind of reading it to get through it so that I could put together a like full review. So yeah, this one was not great, but I did read this. It was a NetGalley arc, but I also read it a little bit after the release date, like the day after or something. So I did have the audio, and neither of them were good. So yeah, that was rough, but it's fine. It's fine. We are moving forward because now we are onto the 3-star ratings. These ones typically are like good, but not like super memorable, and ones that like I can see that there's a really good audience for. It just wasn't for me, but I see a lot of like potential. And that is exactly what this first book is. I read Dad Camp by Evan S. Porter. I also had the arc for this, and I think I read it the day it came out. So I had the audio and the ebook, and I really think that they worked really well together. But here's the thing, this book I think is truly meant for people who are men, fathers, parents in general, because this story is about a father-daughter duo who goes to a camp that is meant for fathers and daughters to go to in order to reconnect because there's some sort of disconnect between them. And that's exactly what this is about. I don't even remember the characters' names, but they go to this camp. The daughter doesn't want to, and I think the environment was really cool. I liked the camp setting, and I think the camp activities that they described, it was all really fun. But then there were a lot of moments where it was the dad talking about his troubles of parenting and fatherhood, and I just didn't relate to any of that because I'm not a parent, I'm not a father. So like I feel like there's an audience here, and it could have been really good for people who struggle with these things too, because the author had made a note at the end that he wrote this book when he was himself experiencing a lot of issues and just like self-doubt in himself, and that's kind of where the story came from. I think that's really inspiring, and I think it's really good, and it could be really good for a father or someone who could relate, but that just wasn't me. I did like the writing. I think it was really well done, but it just wasn't for me, so it did get like a mid rating in the 3-star range. The next book up was another arc, and this was The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. Now this is the third book. No, this is the 3rd book I've read from this author, so I was really excited about it. And I think one of her strongest suits is that she does wilderness writing really, really well. I loved the Silent Woods and like the environment that she set there, and then with this one, same deal. I really liked the setting, but I was ultimately bored for like the whole first half of the book. They spent a lot of time hiking. This is about a like ranger, or like she teaches a lot of like outdoorsy things, and her ex-boyfriend comes to her and is like, hey, your best friend is missing, help me find her. So they go off on this like hiking adventure to find the best friend, to find out what's going on, because she's like a camper van influencer. And I was just kind of bored. I was not rooting for these characters working well together. I didn't like the vibe, but I liked the environment that they were in. But that's just the hiking part, so yeah. That's kind of where I landed with this one. It was very mid for me. I liked this one less than These Silent Woods, but if you are a big fan of like national forest types of like hiking things, then maybe this could also be for you, or like the camping van life, because there was a big theme in here about that too. Next up is probably one of my most disappointing reviews for the month, and it's Heavenbreaker by Sarah Wolf. This one only gets 3 stars from me. I feel like this was marketed incorrectly. This is way more sci-fi than it was fantasy, and I feel like the sci-fi part was a lot ignored in like the marketing and the description. This is about like jousting on giant machines. I'm gonna be honest, the entire time through this book, I was just picturing the scene from Spy Kids 3 when they are on the robots and like controlling the giant robot fight thing. Like that's the mental image I had in here. They're jousting on machines. There's a lot of drama, interpersonal drama between the young people that are the main characters. And like, I get it. And it was entertaining. We do get multiple perspectives here, but I was like super vibing for the first half. It was fast paced. I was loving everything that was happening. And then the whole second half, I feel like I have no idea what was going on. I lost all comprehension. I truly I don't know what was happening. And I'm not quite sure where we left off. There's going to be a sequel, and I will probably read it. I think I'm gonna hold on to this copy for now. It is the first edition with like the sprayed edges, which is really pretty and why people picked it up. So I think I'm gonna keep this copy, and I will hold off until the sequel, but like I'm a little bit nervous about it. Like just a little bit nervous, but yeah, that one was just a little disappointing because I had great hopes knowing that it was about jousting, and I worked for a jousting company once, so I'm like, yes, this is for me. It was very different. It was very different than what I thought it was gonna be. But it's fine. It's fine. Now we move on to the 4-star ratings. This was my biggest category for the month. I had 11 books in here. So I'm going to try to go through these pretty quickly and just give a very brief reasoning for why I really liked it. The first one is the first book that I finished in June, and it was Happy Medium by Sarah Adler. I love this author. Her writing is so fun. This is about a con artist spirit medium. She goes to a goat farm to convince the goat farmer that his farm is haunted. And honestly, one of the best parts of this book is the ghost that's on the farm, because while our main character Gretchen is a fake spirit medium, when she goes to the farm, she actually meets the ghost and finds out like, oh god, I can actually talk to this one. This is weird. I'm used to like pretending, and now I don't have to pretend. So she's talking to this ghost, and he is honestly so funny. He's so iconic. By the end of the book, I was like, I want this man to be my best friend. I wish he was alive because I want him. He was just a grand old time. I did root for the couple, which is a good sign in a romance. I liked them. I liked the banter. It was very fun. And the setting of like this goat farm was super cute. They did lots of things with little goats and like goat yoga and all this stuff. So it was a very fun time. Very quick read, and I just like Sarah Adler as an author altogether. Next up, we move to Bonesmith by Nikki Palprado. This was a buddy read that I was doing with Lexi, Mel, Cassidy, Rachel, Bree. It was a whole group of us that were reading this. I'm not sure how many people actually finished it because I'm pretty sure some people DNF'd it, but like I had a good time, so I gave this 4 stars. I do feel like there were times where it was slower and sometimes a little hard to follow, but overall I really like the kind of like magic and the way that it works in here. Our main character is a bonesmith, so she can manipulate bones, and she can kind of like see the spirits that are impacted by the bones that they used to be in the human. And anyway, the story starts off with her failing a competition, and her punishment is to go to like the outer lands, and she ends up in this whole big thing with like a prince, and someone gets captured and she has to go rescue them. Then she has a reluctant ally, and it's just like this whole thing. Like a lot happens in here, and I was here for it. Like I was having a good time reading this, and I am looking forward to the sequel that comes out I think this fall, so that makes me excited. Like it's not my favorite thing ever, but like I liked it, and I think that the smithing magic and the way that it is explained, and like it's a lot of world and a lot of explanation here, and I thought it was really cool, so I'm looking forward to the next one. Next up is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison, and I think I'm going to start off by saying the more I think about this one, it probably could have been 3 stars because I have forgotten literally everything about it. I remember that this is about a person who gets out of a cult, like her family's cult, and then she's basically exiled when she wants to leave, and she gets a wedding invitation to go back for, I'm pretty sure it's like her ex-boyfriend's wedding or something like that. Anyway, she's super surprised that she's even allowed to back, but she goes, and then she starts to uncover a lot of things and has the like self-realization of exactly what she was experiencing when she was younger. And I'm gonna be honest, but at this point I've forgotten literally the rest of the story. So that's all I've got to say. I remember liking it while I was reading it. I really like Rachel Harrison's writing. I think she writes very realistically and naturally, but like, I don't remember this book at all, so I guess that's all I'm gonna say. Next up, we have A Step Past Darkness by Vera Kurian. This one I picked up at a book festival because I was getting it signed by the author. And I'm really glad that I ended up liking it because I have a personalized copy. But this one is going to take place in 2 different timelines where we are getting a tragedy that happens in like 1995 where a bunch of people died, and then flashing forward to 2015 where a couple of the people who like witnessed it and survived what had happened, one of their friends dies and they have to figure out what happened to her, and they are basically going to be uncovering a lot of the secrets that have been covered up over the last 20 years. They're going to find out a lot of things about their hometown that they did not expect, and this book is very dark. Honestly, I was kind of shocked by how deep and dark this went into a lot of really like troubling content, but it was so good and it kept me gripped wholeheartedly. Like when I was like in the zone, like I was hyper focused on this, and it was so good. Like it was fast, high energy, and very deep and dark, and I just think this was an excellent book. Next up is another Neck Alley arc, and this one might also be my most surprising for a good reason. This one is One Night Stand Ever After by Amanda Usen, and based on the cover, which I absolutely hate, I didn't think I was gonna like this one, but I ended up having a pretty good time. I can describe this in one sentence, and it is a Hallmark movie with lots and lots of smut, like smothered in it, okay? It's literally 2 people who hook up on one night stand, have a great time, and then fast forward to a little bit later, they both end up going to help out their grandmothers, and they end up reconnecting and deciding, you know what, we're here for a short amount of time, why don't we just hook up on the side? Nobody needs to know. So they have this like secret relationship, and I just think this book was really fun. Can't take it too seriously. If you look too closely, it's probably not that great. It's just part of a series. I did not read any of the other ones in the series. I think this was number 3 or 4, and basically all the female leads are in a burlesque dance troupe together, and so that's a really fun side piece of this that I really liked, is that she's a dancer, and I used to dance, so I kind of understand where she's coming from. I do not burlesque dance, but I really liked that kind of element that was thrown in there. It made it a little bit extra fun. Next up, we have Dark Shores by Danielle L. Jensen. This one, I also have pretty much forgotten everything that I read about it, so it could probably be knocked down to 3 stars for, you know, being forgettable. But this one is about a woman who is like a pirate, and she ends up getting captured and has to make a deal in order to save her people, and then she goes through a lot of like moral dilemmas on how to basically save everyone that's around her and make sure that people aren't being taken advantage of. And honestly, this book was a good time while reading it. I do think it was a little bit of a slower pace, and there was a lot of things that at one point I got kind of confused. There are gods that are kind of talked about and referenced, and I don't know, some of it just kind of went over my head a little bit. I was liking it while I was reading it, but after the fact, I'm pretty sure I could knock this down to probably 3 stars, maybe like 3.5. But yeah, the more I think about this one, the less I remember about it. But I do remember liking the relationship, so that's something, right? Anyway, let's just move right on to the next one. And this one is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is definitely the longest book that I read in June, and it took me quite a while to get through, but I ended up reading a lot of this at the beach, and it was great. I actually really, really liked this. I think it's way too long. I don't think it needed to be 700 pages. I think that's very extreme, but I did like the relationship that we see established here, and the way things kind of unfold and are revealed, I think is really fun. Our main character, Rave, is like an assassin, kind of like she was raised to kill, but she slowly starts to have these like memories coming back to her, and she doesn't really understand what it means. But then Khan is the king of one of the like lands, the realms in the world, and he ends up meeting Rave, and Khan is going to basically come alongside with Rave, bring her with him, and kind of help her start to understand what's going on around her. I do think this was a good time, and the relationship was really fun, and I liked it a lot. I just think it could have been shorter, because at this point there's so much book that I'm like, I don't even remember half of what happened in this book. But it was still 4 stars, and I'm really looking forward to being able to continue in the series and find out what comes next. Next up was another NetGalley arc, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This one was one of my most anticipated arcs of the month, I think. This is a horror book, and honestly, it was so creepy and weird, and I just really, really liked it. It is about a Korean American family, and it deals a lot with racism and the way that they are treated. And then we are following the main character, which is one of the daughters of the family, and she starts to hallucinate herself in a room full of eyeballs. And things just get really, really weird from there. But it all comes back to the, like, one of the main scenes at the beginning is a memory that she has of the first time that her mother had her eat the fish eyeball, which is like a whole, you know, cultural thing for them, and that kind of kickstarts the eyeball theme for the rest of the book. This book is just super weird. It has more of like a creepy, I don't know, it's like thrillery vibe, but it has like the horror elements when it comes to the eyeballs. So yeah, this one was fun. This was just a fun, weird time. I definitely recommend it. As well as the next one, which is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This was the Pyramid Book Club book for June, and I really, really liked this one. This is a thriller about couples who are participating in a competition to find out who is the perfect couple. They go to an island, and they're supposed to do like island survival and like competition games and stuff. And a storm comes through, and then people start dying and things start happening, and they have to figure out what's going on. And I think that this book is very twisty, very complicated. There's a lot that's going on, but I think it was a really fun time. It reminded me a lot of different shows that I've watched over the years. Basically, the competition part of this book is exactly like Love in the Wild, the show from like, was it like 2012, 2013, a reality show about couples that meet and compete. And I think that this book, that competition show, is like perfectly kind of themed to that. But then the rest of the book very much reminds me of the TV show Siberia, which had exactly 1 season because it was like not that good. It was marketed as a reality show and it was not, but I feel like a lot of what happened in that show actually relates very well to this book. So if you've seen either of those, yeah, it's basically those 2 shows wrapped up into one is what this book is. But I had a really good time with it. Next up is Murder Road by Simone St. James. This is the Evernight by Illumicrate copy. This book is about a couple who is driving down a dark road in a small town, and they pick up a hitchhiker who was stabbed, and then she dies, and now they are suspects in her murder. And so the rest of this whole book is basically them taking it upon themselves to investigate the murder and find out what's going on in this small town and why everything is super sketchy. I think it was really fun. Again, I'm in it for a good time, for the good vibes. I think this was fun, very creepy. It has a little bit of a supernatural element to it, as well as like the murder mystery thrillery vibes. So like all around, just a really fun time. And I think the characters were really fun, although they were pretty stupid. They make some really, really dumb decisions in here that catapult a lot of things. And like, why would you possibly think that you can solve all of the murders that have happened in this town? I don't know, but they certainly thought so. And this last 4-star read is the last book that I read in June, and it is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. I literally finished this on the last day of the month. This one is about a conversion camp and the town that kind of worships this conversion camp, and one person's journey to uncovering the truth as her memories start to come back to her, and she starts to put pieces together and wants to find out what's going on, and then dismantle the toxic conversion camp and the toxic kind of like religious approach to things in her town. She has a couple people that come along with her. I think this book is creepy, it's dark, it's really messed up in a lot of ways, but like ultimately the experience of reading this was so good, and it's relatively short, so it's not a long read, but like as my first Chuck Tingle, I am fully ready to read more from him. I do think this was a really well-written book, and the content of it was very dark, very creepy, and I just really liked it. And now, last but not least, we have my 5-star reads. I had 2 of these, and the first one is Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. This is a very dark and twisted thriller. It was unexpectedly dark and twisted. This is about 3 girls who were raised in the same foster home, and they reconnect later down the road whenever bones are dug up from underneath the house that they grew up in. And they are now set on a journey of figuring out what happened. They are unlocking these memories from when they were little and really putting the pieces together of just what went down in that foster home. I cannot say enough how deep and dark this book is. And I like, that's part of why I loved it so much. I feel like the author just really went all out on this one with a lot of really dark child abuse, child trauma that happened in this foster home, and you kind of know that that's the deal going into it. You know, you can very, very easily tell that this is where the story is going, but I was shocked with exactly how deep we went and what transpired throughout the rest of the book. It was a lot, but like the way that this book kept me captivated, I was like fully invested, and I just loved this book. Like I finished it and was almost speechless because of all the things, especially like the ending and how things round out. It's just it was so good. And I think this is the second book I've read from Sally Hepworth. I think the first one I gave 4 stars, which was The Soulmate, and this one 5 stars. Like I just absolutely loved it. But now this brings me to the last book for June, and that was my final 5-star read, Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This book is a fantasy romance about a witch and a witch hunter. So yeah, the vibes were immaculate. I loved the romance that transpires in here. I feel like the way that they were bantering with each other was like pretty iconic, but like the best part and the most iconic part of this book is the fact that they are trying to con each other at the same time. But neither of them knows that the other is conning them, but they think it. They're like, but what if we're both trying to like pull one on each other? But like, no, that couldn't happen, right? But like it is, and it's so good. I feel like the writing here was really well done. It was really fun. The world is expansive, and you just get this really incredible story where the witch, Rune, her whole life is spent trying to protect other witches. She's trying to help people like her and keep them safe, and Gideon is trying to kill them. He's trying to have them arrested, and he's hunting the witches. And so you get this like dichotomy between like right and wrong, but it's very much not right and wrong, and there's a lot of gray area that they have to tackle and figure out what's going on. And then yeah, the end of this book had me like so stressed. And honestly, I need the next book. Like this is book 1. I need book 2. Like yesterday, please and thank you, because I need to know where this is gonna go, because there's a lot that happens that I just can't say, but like by the end, the way that things are like exploding and unraveling, it has me very stressed and very worried. So I need it now. But that brings me to the end. That is all the books that I read, all 17 completed with 1 DNF. I feel like this was such a good reading month, and it just makes me very excited to see where I'm going to go in the future. Although I do know that July is going to be slowed down quite a bit. I am trying to kind of rein back a little bit, trying not to overwhelm myself, because I've been on readathon after readathon, and I'm just trying to rein it in a little bit. But June was so good, and I'm on like such a high that I want to hopefully carry some of that momentum into July and get some good books in there too. But first, I want to hear all of your thoughts on the books that I mentioned here. If you've read them, what you've thought, if you're excited for them, I'd love to hear that too. If you like this video and you want to hear more from me, hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with everything I have coming in the future, and so that you can keep up with my July TBR and my eventual July wrap up as well. I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye!